Hello, everyone. It is Cathy with Backyard Columbus, and I'm kind of excited about this episode because this is what I do every winter, other than trying to get every single thing done during the winter that I don't get done during the summer because all I do is hang out in our yard. But I like to think about what I would like to do, change, or add in our yard. Okay, and so today's episode is about winter dreaming and planning for this year's garden space. And you should probably buckle up. I'm going to try to make this as succinct, and I'm not going to lie, it's probably not going to be short, but I don't have anything written down. So that's where I go wrong. But I find that when I write all of this stuff down, I spend a lot of time writing things down, and then it just doesn't come off as organically as I would like it to be. And I just end up getting lost anyway. There is a Buddhist monk, Ajahn Brahm, that I listen to. I'm going to mess this up. From the Buddhist Society of Western Australia. He's a very wise man. I just love listening to his talks. But my impression is that he just goes into the talk and feels what hits him, and then that's what he talks about. And so in a lot of my episodes, we have so much going on in our yard that I just kind of wing it and wait to see what happens. And then if something seems interesting enough to share it, or I feel like you could learn something that I just learned, then I talk about that also. So that's for today. So anyway, winter is a great time to start thinking about. If you haven't done anything, like say you live in the suburbs, and this is primarily who I'm kind of targeting with these episodes, is to get more suburbanites, or whatever they're called, suburban dwellers, engaged in providing wildlife habitat for all of our critters, birds, bees, butterflies. And I always hesitate about saying wildlife because I'm afraid what people think I'm talking about are the things that you don't want. Like I like skunks. I honestly don't want to encounter one in our backyard on accident, but everybody serves their purpose. People get freaked out by possums because they're not that cute. Honestly, the babies are super cute, but the adults are not that cute. Well, they actually eat, I just lost it. It's ticks. They walk around and eat ticks. And they eat ticks, and skunks eat grubs. So things have a purpose, and we can't eradicate everything, because then what happens is you pay to have someone come out and get rid of all of these things in your yard. So you're dumping chemicals on your lawn, you're paying out money, and you could have just had a balance. I mean, a skunk is only a problem if you have a dog. And so I do understand that really sucks. I don't want to have to pour ketchup all over my dog, or whatever the heck it is that gets rid of skunk smell. That sounds absolutely miserable. But you see where I'm going with this. So anyway, it is fun to think, no matter the size of your space, what you could do to improve it for you. I'm not talking about curb appeal, although that certainly is a thing. Resale value, sure. We joke that if we were ever going to sell our house, which we are not, I'm literally never moving. We have redone our entire house, and it's more for me. I mean, we can rebuild a house, okay? But the yard, hypothetically, we could do that, but that is definitely a passion project to me. And even if I won $1 million, I wouldn't want to pay someone else to do it. Like, I want to do it, but I don't want to do it all over again. I love tinkering. I love doing it the first time. Doesn't mean I want to do it again. Anyway, see, this is probably why I should write things down, because I was on a path and then I lost it. Anyway, that's okay. Let's just start from here. Dreaming about what you would like your space to be. And so when we moved in here, we had 5 oak trees, which are wonderful. Oak trees, actually, if you're not going to do one thing and you want to help wildlife, meaning birds, bees, butterflies, and anything that floats your boat, an oak tree hosts over 500 species of butterflies and moths, which means that they lay their eggs on those leaves. Okay, and don't worry, it's not going to destroy the tree. This is in such low numbers. It doesn't sound like it, but it's really totally fine. Those eggs become caterpillars, and then those caterpillars potentially then will become more butterflies and moths, but over 90%, and it's a little bit more than that, but over 90% of the birds in North America feed their babies caterpillars. So you see, just by having an oak tree, it does a whole lot of good for the butterflies and birds in our lives. Okay. So anyway, we had 5 oak trees and grass and a giant blue spruce that was so out of whack. Yes, that would provide habitat for birds and squirrels and probably raccoons, but it was overpowering the house. Anyway, we took that down, and unfortunately, all of our trees became diseased. And through that, we had what I call opportunities. So in the backyard, and I've mentioned this before, but it is kind of where my journey came from with the landscaping in our yard. I love rainforests. I study about them. I've traveled to them, and with different scientific groups. But that costs time and money, and sometimes both of those are in short supply, and so are the opportunities for somebody who is not a scientist to just go walk around in a rainforest. Anyway, so I wanted to create that same feeling in our yard. And so I took one corner, and no matter what you want to do with your landscaping, if you're starting from scratch or redoing, I would start with one corner. I mean, usually time and money prohibits anything else, okay? But if you had all the money in the world, it's still going to take time. And so starting with one corner, you won't feel overwhelmed. And I made that look like a little patch of woods. Well, then unfortunately, we lost all of the trees, like I said, to disease. And so little by little, I created more spaces where those trees used to be. All right. And then I started connecting those spaces, and then we added paths between those spaces. And with a loss of a tree, usually comes a flood of sunlight. And then we added pollinator gardens and vegetable gardens and all the different elements. Okay. And so this is where, if you're not creative, there are native plant landscaping companies here in Columbus. I'm not going to say, and I'll put it in the notes because I can't think of one off the top of my head, and I like them both equally. They're both friends of mine, so I'm not going to say the name right now at all unless I think, Ohio Native Concepts and Backyard Hippies. Okay, those are both some really great landscaping companies that can help you design with native plants in mind. But it really is also fun to do some of it or all of it yourself, because number one, you're getting the exercise. It gives you mental clarity, sunlight, and the fruits of your labor. So that's really fun. Or, those folks can come in and help, and then you maintain it. It will still do the same thing. But starting with one corner really does a lot. And so maybe you would like to, I'll just throw out some ideas here. Again, you're starting from scratch, or you're tinkering with adding different elements and redesigning your space a little bit. I seem to think I'm done, and then I redesign probably every year, honestly, to some degree, but every other year. My dream is still, I'm trying to figure this out, is I want to add a creek, like a little babbling brook, in our suburban yard. I know there is a spot. There has to be a logical spot somewhere. I mean, you could put a creek anywhere, but I want it to have purpose and not look like I just plopped a little babbling brook in the middle of the land, in the middle of our yard. Anyway, maybe you would like to do some vegetable gardening. All right. And so I'm going to approach all of this like you have no idea how to do anything, because I don't want anyone to feel like you're the only one who doesn't understand what I'm talking about. But a vegetable garden needs full sun, so do not choose this north side of your house. That would be a very bad place to put a vegetable garden, because that will receive the least amount of sun during the day. And a vegetable garden needs to have a minimum of 6 hours of full sunlight a day. So south side, east side, or if there's no tree cover at all, no shade from your house, like just say you have a huge open backyard with no trees, no house, no shed, put it anywhere. Okay, so then it doesn't matter. But when you have a smaller lot and you have shade coming from either the neighbor's trees or a tree in your backyard, or you have a house that's going to cast shade on the ground from however the sun is setting, rising or setting, then that is when you need to be more concerned about how many hours of sun does that space get. And sometimes that changes. Okay, so one side of our house, it is the south side of our house, and so it got a terrific amount of sun. Well, then my neighbor has evergreen trees, and I love the trees, but the taller they got, the more shade got, cast onto the ground that made our south side of our house now full shade. Okay. And so I just adapted. And so now, with the loss, again, a loss of another tree in the backyard, we ended up with a full sun spot, no trees, no houses, no anything throwing shade on the ground. And it doesn't matter where it is anyway. Anyway, we have a corner of our yard that is all vegetable garden. If you do not have a corner of the yard and say you have more of a courtyard, a raised bed, a raised cedar bed. And so we got one from Costco. You can get them all kinds of places, but it stands about waist high. And you can do a small vegetable garden in that. You can grow tomatoes in pots. And I mentioned this a couple of episodes ago. If you are going to do container gardening with tomatoes, the number one thing, if you want it to stay tidy and not get out of hand, and I mean the actual tomato plant, on the back of the package where all the instructions are, which most people don't read, it will say very close to, well, somewhere in the instructions, it will say very clearly determinate or indeterminate tomato, and the determinate type will stay more contained and be less unruly than the other kind. Okay, so what you're looking for if you're doing a container like a pot on your patio is a determinate tomato. In raised beds, like 16 square foot raised beds out in the yard, it kind of doesn't matter because you can stake them up. The indeterminate kind need to be staked up. You can trim them, but they're not going to stay in a nice, bushy little compact form, okay? So just check that out if you care. It will just make your life easier. And if you're kind of fussy about how your patio looks, then I really, really encourage you to stick with the determinate, or you will get very frustrated because they're going to look like crap. Now, as far as tomatoes go, they can flop over and they really don't care. They'll grow along the ground. I mean, the tomatoes will grow on the vine no matter what it's doing. But again, if you want to make your life easier, not have things crawl all over your tomatoes on the ground, then just listen to all what I just said and it'll make your life easier. Okay. So vegetable gardening, like I said, can come in a variety of forms. And so maybe you start thinking about that now because you'll want to plan your space as soon as the ground starts to thaw. You can start adding soil. And look, even on a nice day in January or February, if you have a spot in mind already for your garden, because I'm telling you this now because late spring into summer happens, bam, just like that. And then who knows what you'll have going on then, because this has happened to me several times. And then because my vegetable garden is very important to me, then I'm scrambling and then I get kind of stressed. Well, the point of gardening is not to stress you out. So very early, think about where you'd like your vegetable garden to go. If it's in the yard or on the patio or whatever, go ahead and buy what you need. All right. If it's a garden bed, pots, the tall garden bed, even the soil, just go ahead and get it all as you think of it, well before you need it. All right. And then the next nice day, you can go ahead and build the structure, put the structure where you need it. If you are starting from grass, you could think about do not use black. It's some kind of black landscaping fabric that will allow absolutely nothing to get through. That is bad. And yes, it won't allow weeds to get through, but it will also not allow the worms to get through. And like you want that. Okay. So you want that to kind of mesh with the ground underneath so that it just all the moisture, all the beneficial insects, all the beneficial, what are they called? Microbial, like fungi, that it's a good thing in this instance. Okay. So, but go ahead and you can put down cardboard. There are people I've read recently, and I get it. Cardboard contains chemicals, and maybe that won't be so great to kill the grass with underneath. But look, we've done it that way for quite a while. It's called a sheet mulching, and it works well. I don't know what to say. Like, this is where I am not a chemist, and so you can do your own research. You're not going to find organic, no chemical, compounded cardboard. I mean, so anyway, the point is you need to put something down first to kill the grass. Otherwise, what you are left with is digging all of that up by hand. And yes, that can be done, and I have done it a ton, and it sucks. Like, that's some hard work. I suppose 16 square feet isn't going to hurt anybody, but if you have a bad back, feel like you're a little weaker, sustained an injury, or otherwise just don't feel like it, a little bit of cardboard really isn't going to hurt anything, in my opinion. So, but who am I? Anyway, put down your cardboard, and then when the weather warms up and the soil starts to be workable, then and on a side note, vegetable gardening, I would strongly encourage you to order the book Square Foot Gardening by Mel Bartholomew. It is a Bible blueprint for how to do raised bed gardening in a variety of ways, and it is an easy read. It's more like you henpeck it, you know what I mean? You look at what you need. It's a reference book. It's a really good reference book. Anyway, he gives you a really good soil mixture to put in those raised beds. At the end of the day, if you don't have time for any of that, just go get bagged organic garden soil. Do not get topsoil. Topsoil is what you use if you want to fill a hole. It is nutritionally void. All right. So all of your stuff will fail. Your vegetables will fail. So never use that for something you want to grow. I'm very particular about using organic soil because I don't want anything that's been treated with chemicals that I'm going to put in my mouth. Okay. So anyway, just some ideas. We're at 16 minutes now and I haven't even gotten past vegetable gardening. So I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, on the food note, Edible Landscaping, great resource book. Edible Landscaping by Michael Judd, Judd. Great resource book. But the overall point of this is you can have beautiful trees like a pawpaw tree. Persimmons, I do not know what they look like. I'm going to assume they are attractive as well. That is native to the United States. What states, I'm not sure, but it's a native tree, I'm pretty sure. Currants, currant, a currant bush, gets little berries. I'm not sure if they're native or not, but that's beside the point. What we're trying to do with edible landscaping is have a pretty bush or a beautiful tree that feeds us. Goumi berry bushes, you've probably never heard of one, Goumi. They are fantastic. I've talked about them several times. In the spring, they get a little buttercup yellow flower on them that smells so sweetly. And then in the summer, they get red berries on them about the size of, that Game Hi-Ho Cheerio. Anyway, gets a little red berry. It's about the size of a Mike and Ike. Anyway, they're delicious. High in antioxidants, very high in vitamin C. They actually help to improve the soil. But if you're looking to improve a spot, maybe we're talking about the front of your house now because they are a perfectly beautiful bush for the front. And it would make a nice anchor bush, like something in a corner, but they do need full sun, a decent amount of sun. We have ours in full sun, and you can keep them clipped to whatever size. I mean, they are not a 3-foot tall bush. A currant is a 3-foot tall bush. Anyway, that's a great edible landscaping plant. On the lines of providing food for wildlife and beautiful flowers in a native bush, you may want to check out a spice bush. Those are great, and they are the host plant for the spice bush swallowtail, which is a native Ohio butterfly, and it is beautiful. And look up spice bush swallowtail caterpillar. If you are lucky enough to see one of those, that's one of the coolest caterpillars I've seen. They're really, really neat. So I've had one, and I babied the thing. I put it in protective custody and raised it, and it made its chrysalis, and then it became another butterfly. So anyway, just some ideas. But edible landscaping, that will almost certainly need full sun, except for elderberry bushes. If you have a space that you want to fill up with something that's really pretty but gets to be a good size, then look at the variety of elderberry bushes. I do not know the Latin name of this, but it's a black lace elderberry. There is also the traditional American elderberry. They all get flowers on them. The black lace gets a bract, I think that's what you call it, like a hand size flower, but it's full of little, I'm going to make this word up, little flowerets, little teeny weeny flowers within that hand size flower, bract thing. Anyway, those are great. They're very hardy. They feed the birds unless you have time to deal with pupil-sized berries, and then you can do something with the elderberries. Elixirs, pies, wine. If I had time, I would love to try my hand at that because we have plenty of elderberries berries. but just let the birds take them. And there was a year where we were encouraged to take down all of the bird feeders, shut down the bird baths because the avian flu was going around, the bird flu, and it was really bad. So this was just a few years ago. They wanted everybody to take all the community places down for the birds. Well, interestingly, then every bird that I usually see on our bird feeder ate from the elderberry bushes. And so that was just kind of neat to see nature working how it's supposed to. So we've got vegetable gardening that you could do, edible landscaping that you could add elements in, chokeberries, elderberries, goomy berries, currants, raspberries. Look, raspberries are something that's really part of a vegetable garden, I feel. No one's ever going to say, ooh, look at your beautiful raspberry bushes, because they aren't beautiful and they're not really a bush. It's like a stick with a bunch of berries on it. But it is a wonderful thing to add in your yard. So if you have a full sun spot and you love berries, or you have little kids absolutely love to pick berries. I'm not kidding you about this. We have a currant, I think it's called a champagne currant, but it's one of the currant bushes. And they have little tiny berries on them that look like eyeballs. Actually, they're cream color and they have a little black dot on the end. So our grandkids call it the eyeball bush, which I think is hilarious. Anyway, all of those things are fun for kids. Boysenberries, big fan. Blackberries, you can get thornless varieties, which is what we have. Kids absolutely love to do that. So, if you have a full sun spot and you want to make a few rows of these kinds of berry bushes, I would highly encourage you to do that. So that's on the edible front. Maybe you just want a little oasis for you to go sit and read, or to have a glass of whatever your favorite beverage is and just unwind from the day. Then again, I would encourage you to go back to the one spot at a time. So maybe that spot, and I'm breaking this down into little steps, because with things in my life, like you, I'm really busy. Okay. And so I save money by little bits. I pay bills by little bits. I do projects by little bits, because when you think, okay, I have this whole room to paint. Okay, this happened to me a couple years ago. I wanted to repaint the kitchen, very short on time. And so I just came home after work and I painted one wall at a time, or a half a wall at a time. I mean, I was using all the same colors, so it doesn't matter. But then before I knew it, within a week, the whole thing was done, instead of trying to find 8 hours, which is usually what it takes no matter what, to paint the room. So that works for me. And so that is why I keep saying one spot at a time, because if you think I want to change my entire backyard, my entire side yard, or my entire front yard, more than likely it isn't going to get done because you're busy. And so I would say, let's just talk about the front yard. Maybe you could increase the size of the landscaping around your sidewalk, and maybe right now it's 12 inches wide. Maybe you could increase that to 24 inches wide and find some low-growing native plants that will go along the sidewalk. As zinnias are my favorite flower. I love them. They are annuals. They are native to the Southwest United States. So they probably grow there all the time, but in Ohio, it will only grow in our summer, of course, and we have to plant them by seed every year. The best way to do that is directly into the ground as soon as it's after Mother's Day. So let's just call it very end of May. I'd plop those in pots or plop them straight in the ground. But if you didn't know this, they come in a variety of sizes. So you can get some zinnitas, thumbelinas, I think is what they're called. Anyway, there are some that just get 6 to 8 inches tall, and you can plop those in between as long as they get full sun. You can plop those in between some native plants that won't overpower them all along your sidewalk. If you want nothing but zinnias, that's totally fine too. But that's a great space to start with. Or the corner, you know how most of us have a front porch, then there's a corner to that front porch that leads into some landscaping, or maybe it's just like a what do you call it? A quarter pie shape, kind of like a triangle-ish shape. Start there, okay? Or what I would not do, unless you want to mow around it, and I say don't do this, but this is what we did. We took our entire front yard, and I have kind of like a 3-sided wavy kidney bean thing going on in the front yard, I don't know, like a jack, I don't know what it is. It just goes all wavy, and it has about 3 points, but it's all fluid and rounded and no sharp points. So we mow around that. what I would encourage you to do, because I have done this before and it wasn't good, is I make sharp corners or very tight corners. So when you try to mow, it's not mower friendly. Do you get what I'm saying? I would try to round out your beds so that when you're mowing around it, you don't curse and hate your life every time you've got to mow around that, all right? And so plopping something in the middle of the yard can be good, but our space that we do that, it's our edible landscaping and full sun bed. We have pawpaw trees, which check those out. Those are native to like Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Kentucky. It is North America's largest native fruit. It is a beautiful, very tropical looking tree that will give you fruits the size of a mango, and they taste like a cross between a mango and a banana with a very custardy consistency. That is featured in Michael Judd's book, Edible Landscaping. Anyway, we have all of that plus full sun pollinator plants in this great big wavy gravy kidney bean shape in our front yard, but it's huge. It takes up 75% of our front yard. But it works because it's big. What I was trying to get at is I wouldn't make a 4-foot round bed right in the middle of your front yard. It just aesthetically, I guess this is my opinion, makes more sense if it's either huge or it connects to something. Okay, so if you want to start small, just stick with around the front porch, around the sidewalk. If you are in an area that does not have an HOA, there is such a thing called a hell strip. I forget what else it's called, but that patch of grass, that strip of grass between your sidewalk and the street, that's many people call that a hell strip for I have no idea why. The city technically owns that, but it's zoned Columbus, and they are quite liberal. Sometimes that's bad, but sometimes that's good. And so I've taken all the grass out, and it is nothing but a pollinator garden, but I do try my very best to make sure that stays looking nice. So if I were you, I would not make that just a willy-nilly English wildflower garden, which has its place, and those are very beautiful too, but those can get too tall. They look very weedy, and that's not something that I would put in the hell strip. But on that note, I am on the board, actually, of Franklin County Pollinator Pathway. That's new for me this year. I'm very excited to be, new late last year of 25. And I'm very excited to be part of that group. And so they are trying to facilitate getting more people involved in pollinator gardening, because if you can get what I'm saying, this is a concept by Doug Tallamy, who is, I think he's an entomologist, biologist, something, big deal nature guy. Okay, that's the best I can do off the top of my head. He gives talks and has several books. And he has an organization called Homegrown National Park. And so the basic skinny of that is, with the loss of all the nature spaces in the United States, national parks can't carry the load for all of the wildlife that we have. So each of us within our own home, or even an apartment, can make these wildlife corridors. So if I make a habitat and my neighbor makes a habitat and the neighbor after that makes a habitat, do you see what I'm saying? That bink, 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 a bird, butterfly, bee, or whatever can just go from one to the next and have a continual supply of food and shelter for anywhere it needs to go. All right, so the same with a pollinator pathway. And so if each of us have even just a small pollinator garden, then boop, 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 as the migratory monarch goes along, whether this monarch is coming up from Mexico, across the United States to the Northeast up into Canada, or generationally they're making the migration back to Mexico, those butterflies need continual sources of food at minimum. And when they're coming up from Mexico, they need milkweed. It's its host plant. That's what it lays its eggs on. And those eggs become caterpillars. Those caterpillars become butterflies. And that's how we continue to have more butterflies. No host plants, no butterflies, honestly. So if you have a favorite butterfly, look up its host plant and then plant that. Okay. And so that's another thing to consider if you're making these spaces in your yard. if you have a particular butterfly in mind that you absolutely love, black swallowtail is a butterfly here in Ohio, then look up what is the host plant, and it's actually several. What are the host plants for the black swallowtail butterfly? And a couple of them are herbs, and so that's very easy. Plant some fennel, plant some dill in some pots, and you are going to be shocked. You will all of a sudden, ta-da, have a black swallowtail caterpillar, and then that will become a butterfly if a bird doesn't eat it first. But that's my last episode about how to create a bird-friendly yard. Anyway, so with Franklin County Pollinator Pathway, I think I skipped a thought there, but anyway, yay, I found my way back by myself. Anyway, they've worked with City Council to, I'm going to get this slightly wrong in the wording, but you are allowed to have pollinator habitats, like a no-mow pollinator habitat. But listen, just pretend, I'm not going to say you, but say you have a lazy neighbor and all they want to do is sit around drinking whatever beverage it is they're drinking on their front porch, and they don't like to mow that often and their whole yard is a hot mess. But now they realize that there's a new code and they're like, well, my yard's a pollinator habitat. That ain't going to fly. Okay, so it's very specific in the wording. You have to show intention. You have to show native pollinator plants. Okay, so back to the health strip, we want to show intention and we want to keep it, I'm not saying nice and tidy like there's a stick up my butt, but presentable and inspiring, and it's doing good. But please don't make it a hot mess, because then you're going to get in trouble. Your neighbors are going to hate you, and then no one's going to do it. If you make it beautiful and fun and appealing, and it doesn't have to be big, it could just be one spot by the mailbox, for instance, then you will be encouraging and enticing other people to do the same thing. And that's how we end up with that homegrown national park pollinator pathway concept of everyone has a spot for nature and they all connect. Okay, so anyway, I think I'm going to cap it off, because that's probably a flood of ideas. I've got vegetable gardening, edible landscaping, and some pollinator habitats. And then maybe one of these episodes I will talk about adding some water features like small ponds to attract dragonflies, toads, and frogs, and all that kind of stuff. But little by little is how all of these things get built. And then, like I say for myself, I've ended up with a yard that I didn't even know that I wanted, but I absolutely adore it. Is there a word better than adore? I'm obsessed with it. Like, this is all I do all summer. I will close out the night. My husband came out one night and it was like 9-something p.m. and he's like, what are you still doing out here? Because there really wasn't anything to do, but I just find things and it makes me happy. And while I'm in the garden, listen, I'm not a worrier, but my mind is always going. I like thinking of ideas, and I'm just thinking about things, not worrying things, just stuff. But when I'm gardening, I don't think about anything except focusing on what I'm seeing, what I'm smelling, what I'm hearing. And so this is why I encourage people to get into gardening, because it is very mind clearing. And in this age of the world is all like higgledy-piggledy and things are kind of a mess in several places, this is a respite, a reprieve, and that is what I hope for you in 26 for your yard, your balcony, your patio, anything like that, is that you have a space that makes you happy and is stress-free. So if I can help you achieve that just a little bit, then that makes me happy. So I hope you will share this episode or any of my podcast episodes with friends. I would really appreciate it. And check out my blog, backyardcolumbus.com, and everything I do is under Backyard Columbus. So thank you again for listening. Sorry it was kind of long, but I hope that you got some good ideas. Have an amazing day.